Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And when you go to apply and they ask you, how did you hear about Podgo? Make sure you tell them that the Vault Classic Music Review sent you.
You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.
Welcome to the Vault Podcast, classic music reviews, presented by IV Creative. Now, here's your hosts, B. Cox and the crew.
Greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Vault Podcast, Classic Music Reviews. Presented by IV Creative, it's a perspective of the classics from a fresh point of view. We appreciate you for taking your time and lending your ears to our perspective. You could be anywhere listening to anything, but you're right here with us, so we thank you. With you today is yours truly, B. Cox, and with me once again, I have my boy, J.O. here in the place to be, joining each other, of course, over the interwebs. I want to thank all y'all on this fine day that we are here. Hope that everybody is safe and doing well around us, wherever you are in the sound of our voice, whether that's stateside or worldwide. Thank you so much once again for continuing to support the show. It's been an action-packed year here on the Vault Classic Music Reviews. We've had a ton of reviews, a lot of things that we haven't even gotten to, and we just want to close the year out strong. Of course, these last couple of months, we're going to make sure that we give it to y'all, and it's coming fast and hot and heavy. So make sure y'all stay tuned and keep your ears open and eyes peeled for what's coming down the pipe for the end of the year for the Vault. Once again, thank you to all the listeners out there for continuing to get the numbers up there and getting the word out. Continue to look out to see where we pop up. You never know. We joined on Audio Mac or also on Podchaser. You'll soon see us on Good Pod, so make sure y'all checking that out and support us, following us as well, and make sure y'all leaving those positive reviews for those of y'all who love the show. As we always say here on the Vault, our motto is hashtag open the vault, hashtag nothing but the classics. And it's been an action-packed one for classics, considering the years, and in particular for 1 year. And we have yet another one, Jay, today of that year. We've been going back to 25 years for quite some time now, and this is no different for this particular album. For those of us who were out and around at that time and saw this album come out, kind of hit us out of left field, and it really capped, which was going to be a banner year for Tupac. We are, of course, talking about Tupac Shakur. And 25 years ago, if you do the math, you know that this was also the year that he was gunned down in Las Vegas and lost his life on September 13th, 1996. But we are going to go back 25 years ago to talk about the album, that last album coming out, released on Death Row, and his first posthumous album, which is recorded underneath the alias of Makaveli and the Don Killuminati-The 7-Day Theory album, which came out on November 5th of 1996 and was the second Tupac album that came out that year, or the second project that came out this year after Outlawz and R&B came out in 1996. That was the wildly successful double album that came out and was Tupac's first release on Death Row Records. And this recording in particular is about this album, recorded literally between July 8th and August 27th, 1996. As a matter of fact, Jay, the story is that this album was completely finished recording in 7 days during the first week in August. And the majority of the rest of the time was spent around mixing and mastering and making sure that it was ready. This album was coming out, always meant to come out in November, or it was supposed to at least come out later on in the year or by the next year. But after Tupac's death, some things did change in regards to this album being released. And because the public was still so stunned by his death, and because the public was also galvanized by his passing, and it was so fresh in their minds, this ended up coming out. Albeit, though, it was in the same year as All Eyes on Me. Very unusual that you'll see a rapper put out 2 projects in the same exact year, only because you don't want to cannibalize any type of sales from the other album, but there was no need for them to worry about that at all. A runtime of 59 minutes and 5 seconds, recorded at the Can-Am Studios in Los Angeles, California, on Death Row Records, of course. And the producers on this, a little bit different than what the direction he went with All Eyes on Me, Jay. You know, he had production on there by Dre, by Daz, a couple other production on there, I believe, as well, with DJ Quick to help mix the album. Devontae Swing did some production on All Eyes on Me as well. These were all fairly unknown producers to most hip-hop heads. These were, as most folks would say, were the B team when it came to Death Row producers, only because the story around that goes like this in regards to how they were added to the album, which we'll get into in a second. Producers on this mostly Daryl Big D Harper, Heard 'Em Bad, Reggie Moore, and also QD3 or Quincy Jones III. Now, Quincy Jones III was the son of the Quincy Jones, and also the brother of who was Tupac's fiance at the time of his death, Kadada Jones. So he was also added on this. He produced actually To Live and Die in L.A., one of the singles that was released on Makaveli. Speaking of the singles included Toss It Up, was released in late September, as mere 2 weeks after Tupac died. To Live and Die in L.A., released in November of 1996, and then Hail Mary, which came out in late December, or in between December, and then released nationally February 11th, 1997. Jay, as the story goes with the producers who produced on Makaveli, with Heard 'Em Bad, with Big D, with QD3 and Reggie Moore, they were all in Can-Am Studios, and they put them what they called, when they were working on the album, put them in what they called the whack room, which is really the room for the producers that may not necessarily make the project, where they sort of sit. And while they were there, it was pretty much they said like, hey, bring these guys in here. You got some beats. Let's go ahead and let's hear what they got. So these producers ended up being a part of the project. And as we all know how we heard about Pac's work ethic when he's in the studio, he gets stuff, he gets beats, and he rolls with them. He was like mechanical when it came to being able to do this stuff. It was like clockwork. And he would sit there and knock all these songs down, knock them down, knock them down, knock them down. And this provided a little bit of a different sound with Makaveli, as you heard before, what you heard with All Eyes on Me. And I think it was somewhat of a welcome change from what you heard from there. And some people would even say that it was more of a return to what you heard on the previous album before All Eyes on Me, which was Me Against the World. Somewhat more of that sound. So here we are, though, Jay, talking about Makaveli, and it's been 25 years. I remember when this came out, and, you know, the shock, first of all, that this album was coming out so soon after he had died, and just how much people jumped on it. This became a really, really big album, and I would even dare to say that it was even bigger than All Eyes on Me when it came out, man. But just give me your ideas and recollections of what you thought about this album when it first came out, and then since then, what you thought about it since 25 years have passed.
Yeah, so I remember that dream, like, 10th grade, 1996, like, and like you were saying, like, you know, Pac passed was, like, pretty much obviously still fresh in our minds. I mean, it pretty much it just happened. I mean, like, the news cycle back then was a little bit slower than now, you know what I'm saying? Because, we had the internet, but it wasn't, like, as quick as it is now. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't, like, as in real time as it is nowadays. So, you know what I'm saying? For this to come out, it's like, hold up, like, you know what I'm saying? Because I guess this is back when, like, you know, they still had, like, commercials for albums. Like, you know, I saw the commercial for, like, the Makaveli joint, they was playing Toss It Up. You know what I'm saying? It was like a party joint, you know what I'm saying? So, like, for him to be gone, and then, like, you know what I'm saying, this party joint comes on, it's almost like, dang, is he even really gone? Like, right, exactly. It's like he's still partying on. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I was thinking, you know, we already know Dre left the label. I wasn't really sure if Daz was going to contribute. So, so I copped it. I kind of stood for the same way. I guess I was like more raw. It was like more raw at the time, but like that joint definitely had like a darker feeling to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess like right off the heels, like all the drama between like him and Biggie and him getting killed out there, and then pretty much like that was like at the fall, like at the tail of like the fall of Death Row. You know what I'm saying? Because Sugar just got off the jail for this parole violation. Yeah. So like, you know what I'm saying? Then listen to the content. I mean, even the way the joint starts off, which is like, I hope I'm not jumping ahead. That's like it's got like one of the hardest intros that I've ever heard, like for a hip hop album. But yeah, like I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by the by the production. I was like, because I was kind of worried, like, it's not going to have the same integrity, but sure enough, it held up. But then looking back on it, then, because even, again, with him being gone, like him still taking shots at people and everything like that, even Biggie on the introduction to that joint. So, like, damn, it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's still raw, still fresh, it's like still going on. So,
yeah,
it contributed to that darker feeling. But now, fast forward now, still has a dark feeling to me, again, because it just puts me back at the time, like thinking about all the emotion that went into it.
Yeah.
And how obviously bitter he was as far as like everything that happened. But like, as far as the material, it's definitely held up over, this past like 2.5 decades.
Yeah, definitely. The feeling when this came out is just like, damn, Pac got another album out already. Like, how was this able to happen? Like, back then we didn't have access to really, unless you were really into music journalism and understanding how the process went, like insider's view, like the way that we have in so many ways the albums are made nowadays. You would have had no idea that Pac was, as soon as he got out of jail, he was recording crazy albums. Like, he had things done and he wanted to move at a pace. Like, I remember reading and seeing as well that his Death Row contract was for 3 albums. All Eyes on Me's double album. That's 2 albums. This was supposed to be the 3rd album. He had plans, and I'm convinced that he had plans to be able to go and do his own thing. We'd always talk about the whole, the plans that Shook had with him with Death Row East, but I know that he wanted to start the whole thing with Makaveli Records, and he wanted to go out and have his own artist, roster and be in charge of actually being the boss of the record label and not just being a part of the label itself. So a lot of things I think were at stake in the making of this album, not even knowing that he was going to be dead a few months later after doing this. I would say even a month after he finished his album, he would be dead. But from the album cover to, the imagery of him being on the cross, which gave was supposed to mean his crucifixion through the media, because he was always a target of the media because of his bad boy image, because he was a convicted felon, because he had been accused of rape and sexual assault, and because of all the things they said about his music, and because he had gotten off for shooting 2 cops, and because of all the things he represented, because of who his family was, and because of who he was at his core. Intellectual, very revolutionary, a rebel, something that scares America. He really embodied what America was so afraid of. And the cover of this album, the fact that he had just died, it's like, oh, he's up on his cross. Like, what does this mean? Like, wow, this is like really, really provocative. I remember just a lot of the controversy around the album cover itself was just one thing.
Absolutely.
But in listening to this album, it's like it's almost like a hunger that you can't really describe. If I were to say what I remember when listening to this album was almost like a mix of Me Against the World and All Eyes on Me. The venom was there from All Eyes on Me in regards to his enemies, him talking about Biggie and Nas, and then he definitely had smoke for Jay-Z. But then there were other people he was talking about, especially in one of the tracks on here, Against All Odds, which is one of the most famous tracks from this album. He was talking about people like De La Soul. He was talking about Chino XL. He had smoke for Haitian Jack and Jimmy Henchman, considering all the history that they had and the role that they played in regards to his shooting at Quad Studios. So I felt as though there was like a hunger, and in listening to a lot of the lyrics, I felt like he finally also had his focus back. Not to say that he wasn't focused during All Eyes on Me, but I felt like All Eyes on Me was raw anger and energy of him being out of prison. I think when he finally had a chance to sort of sit down and see his future in front of him as far as what it would be and what he wanted it to be, I felt like that focus was there. You could hear it in songs like Blasphemy. You could hear it in Hold Your Head. You can hear it in White Man's World. Those lyrics kind of struck back to me at what Tupac was at his core. We talked about this earlier when we did our All Eyes on Me feature earlier this year. I felt as though that was a Tupac that was, hopped up on caffeine and was pumped up with steroids of hate and vitriol and what not just Suge, but whoever else was around him that was saying everything about everyone who had abandoned him when he had left jail. This, I feel, is a little bit more, while it has the venom, it's a bit more focused. And I felt as though the variety on this album speaks to more what the artist of Tupac was before we knew him to be a death row artist, and before he was the biggest star in rap and the most loved and also most hated rap star. I remember this being big though. And I remember even with the videos with Toss It Up And then Hail Mary being an absolutely huge hit. Even now, 25 years later, this is one of his biggest hits ever. It's a song that when you hear it played, that you get a reaction out of people. To see how people responded to it after he died. I mean, this album went 4 times platinum. I mean, it was certified 4 times platinum as of June 15th of 99. So not even 3 years afterwards, it went quadruple platinum. It sold over 600,000 copies in its first week. And that was the second highest first year week sold sales total of that year. And we're talking about 1996. So that's quite an accomplishment right there in itself. But this album, to me, only added to the legend and the mythology of what Tupac was, especially now since he had been dead. And it really kind of started that post-Tupac legacy where we moved on until you got into the other posthumous albums like Are You Still Down and Changes and all the other material he recorded that he had meant for us to hear, but meant to him to be here to be able to maybe explain while he was here as well. But this album, to me, I thought it was incredible. The production on here, I think, mirrors more what we heard on Me Against the World, which, I mean, obviously I feel as that's his best album, but I feel as though this is more Me Against the World than it is All Eyes on Me. All Eyes on Me had a lot of famous guest appearances on this. On this, you have a couple. I mean, you have the Outlawz. And then with Toss It Up, you have Aaron Hall, Danny Boy, and Casey and JoJo, which is crazy that you have 3 singers on there really like on that song. Just a great album to me. I think it was a little bit more focused, and I feel it was just what we could expect from him had he been able to stick around. And not only that to say, but everyone had a copy of this album. I felt like when the first week that this came out, I feel like I saw this, the people just pulling the CD out of their backpacks or having it out at lunch, and you were seeing that album cover almost everywhere on cassette holders. You saw it everywhere. It was everywhere. It really was everywhere. So now we're going to get into highlights. So Jay, we'll get into your highlights, man. Tell us what you think about the highlights on here and any lowlights if you have them as well.
Yeah, so I mean, like, even before I get into like the track, another thing just came across my mind, like the whole mystique behind it. Like, you know, how you were saying with like him on the cross, like even the disclaimer saying it's not meant to disrespect Jesus Christ, but like, you know what I'm saying? I'm kind of one of those hip hop nerds. I look at the credits on the joint, and you know, and remember like Death Row joints, it just said like everything on the back was like executive produced by Suge Knight, but this one just said Simon on it. You recall that?
So well, that was supposedly they had nicknames for each other, Pac and Suge, and Suge's nickname was Simon, and Pac's was Makaveli. You know. That all played back to where he got the Makaveli from in the first place, from reading the book, from the Niccolo Machiavelli, the Prince. And so Pac was very clever with things like that. Like everything was intentional about this album, from the album cover to Simon. I mean, that's stuff that we all kind of found out afterwards. Like, yo, who the fuck is Simon? And now we know who the fuck Simon is. I definitely was asking, like, oh, who is this? Like,
I mean, it was no alias. Just said Simon. Like, it's kind of creepy. Like, and like I said, add to the mystique and like that eerie feeling. But like, like you were saying, as far as like the highlights. I mean, of course, like the singles, like Toss It Up. I would speak on Toss It Up. Like, you know, like you said, 4 singles on there. I mean, of course, you know Danny Boy from like, you know, being on Death Row. We all knew Casey and JoJo by that point. But then it was a pleasant surprise to me hearing Aaron Hall on that joint. Like, I was like, hold up, man, where you been, bro? Like, you know, like, it was like, I mean, I understand. I mean, not to piss anybody off, but I mean, R. Kelly did kind of get like his whole style from Aaron Hall, but so it's like, I mean, because I mean, remember he like Aaron Hall kind of disappeared, like, so it's like, okay, oh shit, like, I mean, I'm like, is Aaron Hall gonna put on some material on Death Row, like, you know what I'm saying? He kind of came in and just like, I almost say stole the show, but like, he's like, look, I'm here, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
he announced himself. Exactly. Right. Absolutely.
The holidays are doubly important this year, so make your celebrations doubly special. At Kroger, we've got a huge selection of high-quality meats on top of fresh, natural produce, like fresh, never-frozen prime-grade beef and our Simple Truth Organic Brussels sprouts, or delicious king crab legs with our private selection gourmet potatoes. Whew, had to say that doubly fast. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
And now, save on the food you love. Shop today and save 50 cents on each participating item when you buy 10 or more with your card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at Home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.
To live and die in LA, it was like a nice joint, you know what I'm saying, for the city and everything like that. Just showing love to everybody.
Yeah.
And even with that, I mean, it kind of had a gangster turn attuned to, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as like people he was shouting out, like, I mean, I don't know if you follow like the behind the scenes stuff about Death Row, but like how he was shouting out like Buntree and Neckbone and Big Heron and like all these people.
All them folks, from Death Row,
I'm pretty sure like all of them are dead by now, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I know Buntree and Heron are gone.
Yeah, man.
And but so like, I mean, he was like more associating with like that underground side of Death Row, the street side of Death Row.
Street side, yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, I mean, dope song regardless. Of course, Hail Mary could be that beat, just the lyrics and everything like that. And
incredible.
I'm trying to think what else. Of course, Against All Odds and Me and My Girlfriend, and especially like White Man's World. I don't think that one gets talked about enough.
Yeah, my goodness. Yeah, that's absolutely. White Man's World.
Oh, and and almost we had like Bond First, like again, because it ties to my point, like, you know, how that it was such a hard intro. You know what I'm saying? Like the way his vocals came in, those gunshots, and then just like that, how the beat just kicks off of that seventh gunshot, and even then there was controversy with that. Like, like he knew he was going to get shot seven times. I mean, it could have been mixed down different after that. You know what I'm saying? But again, it adds to the mystique of the album.
It definitely adds to the mystique of the album. And amazing that, you know, we talked about things being mixed and things being what was added afterwards. I'm always interested to see what was added afterwards because as we all remember, and, you know, this has been talked about in interviews and folks who were there, in particular, folks who were in Tupac's crew, and then also Nas speaking on this on King's Disease this year. He spoke about it on Death Row East about the problems that Pac had with him, and then them pretty much meeting each other at the MTV Music Video Awards, and then also at the park that weekend, and pretty much their two crews coming at it. Nas thought things were gonna go left for a quick second, but what happened is him and Pac had a chance to talk and chop it up, and him and them, they talked. And Pac said, well, he thought that Nas meant something when he was talking about something like this. And Nas said, well, nah, I wasn't even talking about you. Yo, I just think we need to sit down and try to work something out. Like, for real, like, we've been needing to work with each other for a while. And so when Pac left, they were both on good terms. And Pac said, yo, look, come out to Vegas. I'm going to be out in Vegas for the Tyson fight. Come out there, man. Let's chop it up and start to think about getting some work done. And as he was leaving, I think it was Eric B. or maybe some other folks he was talking to, Eric B. and some other folks from Death Row, like, yo, when we get back, we going to make sure that shit on the album, we going to take all that shit about Nas out. And that was the plan, for him to take all the shit about Nas out. But obviously he died. And Suge, you know, being who he is, left the shit in there. Left the shit in there. Because when Pac died, he didn't have a problem with Nas. Based on everything that everybody tells us, he did not have a problem with Nas. That does sort of add to the mystique of the album. As far as
I was also gonna say, like, you know, to that point about Nas, like, because I wasn't familiar with the backstory as far as like that stuff supposed to have been taken out. I mean, like, okay, because Against All Odds, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a duality with Nas because Against All Odds, you know, he was dissing. I mean, he was dissing Nas in that joint, but then, you know, the whole track about Me and My Girlfriend, that was inspired by Nas' I Gave You Power.
I Gave You Power, yeah. He was inspired by I Gave You Power to write Me and My Girlfriend. And there's nothing more other than you could pay homage to a rapper by having him inspire you and then write a song based off that inspiration. So, yeah, that's the ultimate sign of respect that you can give someone. And a way that you can do it without it necessarily being biting. You know what I mean? Because you're talking about two different tracks other than I Gave You Power and Me and My Girlfriend. So, yeah.
But then the whole thing was like that. I mean, like, some people consider biting on with Jay-Z, like, the 03 Bonnie and Clyde joint, like, years later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well,
of course, like, you know, Jay-Z, I mean, Pac didn't like Jay-Z, so.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that was biting. I mean, let's call a spade. Jay's bit that joint, and he completely bit it. And it's funny because I think you've seen that YouTube video where they switched up his words when he first said, I'm not a biter, I'm a writer for myself and others. And they switched up his words that said, I'm not a writer, I'm a biter.
The whole joint. The whole joint.
It's like a 7-minute track. People mix to him, quote unquote, biting things from other people. But anyway, you're absolutely right, though. My highlights. So on here, Obviously, man, bomb first. It's a hard ass intro. It's an ominous intro considering the things they talk about in the beginning. He goes hard on this and really spits some venom on this to open up to set the tone. Hail Mary, I mean, come on. Like it's one, the beat by Hurt 'Em Bad did his thing on this. The Outlawz did their thing on this. Pac had the hook and everything kind of just made this a classic track. To Live and Die in LA, man, it's great because I think it's like you said, shout out to 12 Kyle, man. I know Kyle's going to listen to this. He's going to listen. And he also reviewed this album with his boy Q. And they talked about, and his guy said it that, this is really like a sort of like a love letter to LA, you know what I'm saying? To living on the West Coast, period. And like you said, it's a real cool and laid back track, but it does have a little bit of that gangster feel to it, that it's a quintessential West Coast track for me. It's like one of those things where somebody had like, there's a scene of a sunset in California and somebody said, oh, what would you have playing in your ride as you're riding to the sunset? And a lot of people said To Live and Die in LA. And I'm like, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Blasphemy. I love Blasphemy. And I love Blasphemy because I love the message in it, especially that first verse. Just the lessons and stuff that you learn and the things that, and when he talked about in that first verse is exactly the same type of thing that he dealt with at many different times in his life. Having to watch your homies. I mean, the whole thing we talked about. He talked about it on Against All Odds with Haitian Jack and Jimmy Henchman. They were the ones who ended up setting his ass up to be shot and robbed in the first place, which led to the beef with him with Puffy and Biggie, because he thought that at first they had set him up, but then also was mad because he was like, y'all niggas knew some shit was going to happen and still didn't tell me or didn't want to try and tell me who did it. So anyway, it does have a lot of words in there that makes you think about how Tupac's life went and those type of things and the lessons that he had learned. He had wised up to a lot of things by then. Crazy. I actually love Crazy. I think the message in that one as well sort of gives you a peek inside of his mind in regards to, the things that he goes through and what he uses to be able to cope with it as well. As you mentioned, man, White Man's World. I mean, that to me is quintessential Pac. When we talk about some of the Pac that you see in the interviews, what you see in the interviews on MTV or the ones you see with Ed Gordon, like that philosophical, rebel, revolutionary, the Children of Panthers Pac, that's exactly who that is on that song. And to me, I think that's really Pac at his best. I really think that it is Pac at his best when he's sort of like this type of song where he's really waxing poetically about the state of black people in this white man's world. And it's everything that even as black men I know that we can relate to even now. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Me and my girlfriend, I mean, like, this is the original. And we talk about Jay, and many people will look at Jay's version, but Jay's version can't touch this shit. This shit is great, incredible, man. It's an incredible song. And, give many, many, many props to Pac to being able to take that inspiration from I Gave You Power to running and being able to make this joint. The last two tracks on here as well, Hold Your Head, I think great. I mean, here you go talking about his homies, ones who have been locked down, the ones who aren't here anymore, paying homage and tribute to them. And then Against All Odds, everyone will talk a lot about Hit 'Em Up and that being the diss track. But this to me, I actually think this is the better diss track. One, because it's Pac and only Pac, and Pac pretty much has smoke for everybody on this joint, not just his rap folks. He has them for everybody. When you listen to it, even the people that he doesn't mention, like in particular him talking about De La Soul and referencing, old ass rappers pretty much they're trying to get their time back, but their time is done. He talked about that in the very last interview that he did before he died. And he talked a lot about, all these old ass rappers out here, niggas like De La Soul and such, and these niggas trying to talk all this stuff about, whatever it is they trying to say, man, these niggas' times are done and they're jealous. This to me, I think is actually the better diss track. I mean, the Hit 'Em Up has the big shock value because, I fucked your bitch, you fat motherfucker, and all this other stuff, and fuck Bad Boy, fuck Biggie, fuck these Mobb Deep. And Bad Boy is as a company, record label, and an organization, and all this other shit, everything. That gets the big thing. But I think, man, substance among substance. I actually think in quality, and far as the lyrics, I actually think this is the better diss track. That's just me. Hit 'Em Up has the shock factor, but I think here he hit all the different parts of everybody he wasn't fucking with at the time. You know what I mean? So. Really, no low lights on this as well. I mean, even the tracks on here, Life of an Outlaw and Just Like Daddy, they're cool. I'm cool with those tracks too, man. The production on this, like I said, I felt as though it wasn't repetitive. And you kind of look at the producer track list and you're like, oh, damn, no Dre, no Daz, no Quick, no, like, I don't know about this shit. But then as you get into the album, you just sit there and you vibe and you chill and you're like, yo, man, this shit is actually cool. You know, for there not to be no really, really big names. And these were the producers that used to be in the whack room. You know, it's surprising. It really is pleasantly surprising. So now we're going to get into Notable Quotable and talk about some notable quotables. Jay, you got a notable quotable for us? And if you do, where is it from?
Yeah, so like I'll say Pac's second verse on White Man's World. He was like, being born with less, I must confess, only adds to the stress. 2 gunshots to my homie's head, died in his vest, shot him to death and left him bleeding for his family to see. I passed his casket, gently asking, is it heaven for G's? My homeboy's doing life, his baby mama be stressing, shedding tears with her son. Finally asked that question, but my daddy at, mama, why we live so poor? Why you crying? Heard you late night through my bedroom door. Now, do you love me, mama? Why you keep calling me nigga? Get my weight up with my hate, I pay him back when I'm bigger. And still thugging in this jail cell, missing my block. Hearing brothers screaming all night, wishing they stop. Proud to be black, but why we act like we don't love ourselves? Don't look around, buster, you sucker. Check yourselves. Know what it mean to be black, whether man or girl. We still struggling in this white man's world. So
yeah, man.
Then going back to the heartfelt lyrics, you know what I'm saying? Pac was spitting like,
yeah.
I don't know if it was like him like kind of waking up from like the demons and all the shit that Suge was putting in his ear, but
yeah.
You know, he's definitely still there within the joint.
He definitely was still there. You could definitely hear him. You know that he's still there. And a lot of that is even in my notable quotable, which is just first from Blasphemy. You know, he says, my family tree consists of drug dealers, thugs, and killers, struggling, known to hustle, screaming, fuck they feelings. I got advice from my father. All he told me was this. Nigga, get up your ass as you plan to be rich. There's 10 rules to this game, but I'll share with you too. No, niggas gonna hate you for whatever you do. Now, rule 1, get your cash on MOB. That's money over bitches because they breed envy. Now, rule 2 was a hard one. Watch for phonies. Keep your enemies close, nigga. Watch your homies. I seemed a little important when he told me I smiled. Picture jewels being handed to an innocent child. I never knew in my lifetime I lived by these rules. Initiated as an outlaw, studying rules. Now, Papa ain't around, so I gotta recall or come to grips with being written on my enemies' walls. Promised if I have a seed, I'm a God, I'm right. Dear Lord, don't let me die tonight. I got words for my comrades. Listen and learn. Ain't nothing free. Give back what you earn. No doubt. Getting higher than the motherfucker blessed and pleased. This thug life will be the death of me. I mean, it's just rules, man. Just, you know.
Just like.
Yeah. I mean, just talking about just the type of thing his father told him. He said, there's 10 rules to this rap. I'm just going to give you 2. And these are the ones that you need to worry about. And he said, you know, get your cash on MOB. You know, it's money over bitches because they breed envy. As rule 2, though, is a hard one. Watch for phonies. Keep your enemies close, nigga. Watch your homies. And that just sort of reminds me of the shit that he went through with him fucking around with Haitian Jack. And so many people told Pac not to fuck around with him. You know what I'm saying? And Pac thought they was cool. Pac thought they was cool. Some shit went down. And that's what the fuck, you know, we saw what the fuck happened to him. You know what I mean? And I think this is, like I said, part of him sort of waking up from this malaise that he was sort of in from in between right before he went to jail to being bailed out of jail to now finally having a clear mind, you know? So, yeah, man. There's tons of notable quotables on this, man. You can go to Hail Mary. You can go to Against All Odds. You can go to
Toss It Up. And he
Toss It Up. Yeah, when he dissed Dre. And that's another thing I noticed as well, man. Somebody on my social media page saying, like, this girl was like, when I first heard it, when I first heard Toss It Up, I was like, oh, damn, this is sexy. I like this or whatever. Then all of a sudden, Pop come out of nowhere and he talking this hard shit and talking all this shit about Dre. Like, hold on, where the fuck did this come from? Like, oh, my goodness. Yeah, she was like, that shit escalated real quickly. I was like, yeah,
right.
Yeah, it did. It definitely did. He definitely had some venom for Dre, though, without a shadow of a doubt. Dre was on his hit list and shit, too, man. So, yeah, that was just, that was really crazy, man. Really, really crazy. That video was crazy, too, though, for Toss It Up. That was actually, I believe, as somebody was saying, was the last video he shot before he passed away. So, yeah.
Right. Plus, if I'm saying, I know at the time Lisa Ray was in that joint. It was like
yeah,
a main
Lisa
girl,
Ray.
like,
Yeah. Classic times, man. Classic times. Lisa Ray back there, she was on the short list. She was on the short list.
Oh, man.
Yeah, yes, sir. So now we're here, Jay. Now we're here to the final test of time to see where we are, to see what kind of classic it is. Do we think it's a certified classic, borderline classic, a classic just in this time, or not a classic at all? And then, of course, on a rating of 7 to 10. So what say you about Tupac's Makaveli, Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory?
I'm going to say classic 10 out of 10.
Yeah. I'm going to say classic, certified classic. I'm also going to give it a 10 out of 10. I actually have this now as my second favorite Tupac album after Me Against the World. I actually like this better than I like All Eyes on Me, to be quite honest. And I think All Eyes on Me has some incredible songs on it. I think it's as a whole is still a good album. It's still, I would say, not even just a good album. I would say it's a borderline classic to classic album. But I feel as though there's a lot of filler on that second disc, on disc number 2. But this to me, man, is very short, very truncated, 12 tracks, man. No filler on this joint, all passion and emotion, and very, very well produced. So I definitely give this a 10 out of 10 and also a certified classic rating as well. So there we have it, y'all. Makaveli, the Don Killuminati 7-Day Theory by Tupac, his first posthumous album released on Death Row 25 years ago this week. Make sure y'all go check it out. Listen to it. It was, to us, a very shocking album for those of us who were out and around that time, because the news of Tupac's death was still very raw. And so go check it out. Listen to it, man. It's a good listen. It's definitely a good listen for about an hour or so. And that is going to wrap up yet another edition of The Vault. Please make sure you are checking us out on our new host on Red Circle. You can also download, stream, and subscribe to The Vault Classic Music Review on any one of our streaming sources. If you go to the link in any one of our social media pages in the bio, you'll find our link tree. There you can get to all of our streaming sources and then also all of our social media pages. Once again, you can get to The Vault on Instagram on @VaultCMR Podcast, on Twitter @Vault Classic, and on Facebook and YouTube you can search The Vault Classic Music Reviews Podcast. Like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, interact with us on social media. Let us know what you think. We do it here all for you. We appreciate the support, and if you have a friend, tell a friend, and make sure that friend tells a friend. Always remember to keep your headphones on and your music loud, but not too loud. And as we close, we like to remind everyone to dream big, because dreams are the basis for creation. Always create, motivate, and elevate, because you were never destined or created to stay stationary in this life. And on that note, we say peace.
Thank you for listening and coming into The Vault. Please subscribe and follow us on Facebook at IV Creative and Instagram at IVECRE8.
What drives you? What inspires you? You know why you're thinking about your education and career. You just need to know how to make your vision a reality. Indiana Wesleyan University will get to know you and your goals, challenge you to achieve, and support you beyond graduation day. We're regionally accredited and offer a tuition guarantee to save you money on more than 160 online degree programs. You know why? IWU is how. Visit IWUishow.com to learn more.
You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.